J-Rod recently won silver at ADCC, and I think he's someone people usually think of as spazzy and just athletic, but I think his recent showing displays his skill development. So we're going to be looking at 2 passes he did, and then his approach to passing seated guard. So we'll look at a few clips of the first pass happening, and then we'll actually go into the analysis of what's going on. So here he's doing it on Giancarlo Bodoni, the ADCC champ, passing right into mount. Doesn't hold mount, but gets past initially. And here we're going to see a very similar thing, but the guard player has double underhooks, but Jay's still going to just be able to step straight over into mount. Now again, the guy defends, but we still get the initial pass. And here's another example, Jay trying a similar thing where he tries to step over, but instead of stepping over, he gets caught in single leg X. Okay, so let's break down what's actually going on. So initially, Jay gets to this position where his left knee is inside Giancarlo's right hip. He's also pinning Giancarlo's right hand, and then he has a grip on Giancarlo's left shoulder here with his right hand. Giancarlo's trying to play a half butterfly guard, but because of these grips and this knee position from Jay, it means that he can now look to step over the butterfly hook and go straight to mount. And here's going to be an example of it failing, but again we're going from a half butterfly situation, and Jay's putting all his weight through his left side, and that's giving him the mobility to try and step this right leg over the butterfly hook. But you can see here how the guard player is keeping a tight elbow-knee connection and also framing Jay away. So those two things means that Jay can't create that space between the guard player's elbow and knee to step his leg into. So here's another example of it not working because Jay tries to step over without getting the knee position first. So what I mean is here, for example, Jay can't get his right knee inside the hip. So now when he tries to step over with his left knee, because the guard player has both his knees inside, Jay is just going to get off balanced overhead and put in single leg X. So now the pass works again, and we're going to see the things that we already saw in the initial Giancarlo clip. So Jay has the inside hip position on his left side, and now the guard player puts in a butterfly hook because he thinks it's a good idea with the double underhooks. But from this, Jay's able to actually pull his arm up and then step over into that space. The guard player was so concerned with the double underhooks that he didn't keep a tight elbow knee connection, and that allowed Jay to step over. This type of passing is something we've seen Joseph Chen use a lot, and because Jay and Joseph train together, I assume that's where Jay got it from. I've seen some people call this the frog step, and if that's a helpful way of remembering it, then call it that. Something that really needs to be stressed over and over again is this idea that Jay's putting all his weight through his left hand side. So this gives him mobility in his hip to open his knee and step over the butterfly hook, but it also respects the guard player who has a butterfly hook. So we'll see here how it looks good initially. Pedro has his knee over Gordon's knee, but we can see that Pedro's shoulders are more square rather than slanted, which means that he's got his weight evenly distributed. This means Gordon's able to elevate him with the butterfly hook and now go on the offensive himself. So the next pass we'll look at is from a knee shield half guard. So moving on from the butterfly stuff. And it's a variation of a knee cut, which is a bit looser but means you can get around the guard faster, and there's more speed involved with it rather than trying to just wear through someone's guard. Because it's not like a traditional knee cut where you get something like an underhook and a crossface first, it means that the person can defend it a lot better and it's harder to solidify the position afterwards, but it's still a really good option because it can get you to better angles and create some movement if you feel like the person's just trying to hold on to you. Okay, so let's look at what's going on then. So from just a traditional knee shield or split squat situation, Giancarlo has this 2-on-1. Jay's going to free his hand, and now look how he cuts his knee outwards. So he's not going in with his knee, but he's cutting it to the outside of Giancarlo's guard. He's also taking a grip with his right hand. He likes that as an anchor like we saw in the previous clips. And look how he jumps around Giancarlo's guard, passing straight to north-south really. So here's another clip that shows the 3 components to this. Jay's pinning with his left hand, so now that means his arm's free when he wants to go around. He's also anchoring in with his right arm on the shoulder, and then he's cutting his knee outwards. So all those 3 things come together to move around the guard. And this is different from the traditional knee cut where you get something like an underhook, cut your knee inwards and try and end with an upper body connection. So the benefit of this type of knee cut is that it's a lot easier to set up. You don't need an upper body connection first. But the downside is that you're not going to be able to solidify the pass as easy because you're not controlling the person's ability to frame. So it's not the end of the world that the person can still frame, it just means that you're usually going to have to follow it up into either a front headlock or a turtle attack like here, So you just have to be aware of that and be ready for it. And finally, we'll look at how Jay deals with seated guards, because he uses some very interesting hand fighting strategies. Okay, so here for example, Jay goes for the collar tie first, and then he goes to grip again. He brings his hand high, feinting the collar tie. The guard player responds and brings his left hand high as well, and then Jay changes the level with his hands and shoots in towards the hips. So this forces the guard player supine, and then he can start moving laterally around the guard straight away and force passing pressure. Here's a similar thing where first he's going to be pushing on the shoulders, going for the collar tie, looking to push at the hips, but the guard player is focused on trying to wrestle up. And look at how Jay's positioning of his head and his arms acts as a down block and gets in the way of the wrestle up, and then he goes straight into jumping around and gets the turtle. And that's all I wanted to go over. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments.